Well, good morning, Rotary District 7770, and welcome to Conversations with Rotary Action People for Monday, January 11th. My name is Donald Hovis, your CWRAP host, and I'm from the Chicora Rotary Club in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. We're pleased to be joined this morning by the co-founder and owner of the DogMaster Distillery from Columbia, not South Carolina, Missouri, Lisa Driskel Hawxby. Lisa, we look forward to your presentation in a few moments. But before we get to your presentation, do some introductions, and we'll get right over to you in just a moment. Lisa, being that today is January 11th, we started at 11, so 11 a.m. on the 11th. You cannot forget that. How about you introduce yourself in the chat box with your name, your Rotary Club, and because of our speaker, you have a favorite beverage or liqueur or liquor that you like. How about, or spirit? How about post that in the chat box, and we'll be good to go. Now, I'm only seeing Carl McIntosh's face on my computer. I'm not sure what's going on. If you guys are seeing the same thing, Carl, we appreciate you being here. I'm not sure what's happening, if Zoom is slow, but we'll see if we can get this figured out. Lisa, good morning.
Good morning.
Excellent. That got Carl. We're good to go. So the person who set up the interview today with Lisa is our wonderful public image chair from the 5 Points Rotary Club in Columbia, Mary Gask. Mary, thanks for being here. So Lisa, first of all, I just told everybody DogMaster Distillery is in Columbia, Missouri. So I think the first question for everybody is, what made you want to open a distillery?
So first of all, I just want to tell folks that our motto is kind of, we take what we do really seriously, but we don't take ourselves very seriously. And I always say that to kind of add some context to some of the stories that I like to tell. I often tell people my version, so maybe my version and my husband's version differ a little bit. I say, you know, a lot of men go through midlife crises, and maybe they get a new sports car or a motorcycle or a girlfriend or a younger wife or something like that. And apparently we took the path of getting a distillery. And so we spent some time in the Pacific Northwest about 8-9 years ago when the craft distillery rage was really hitting there, and both became really enthralled. My husband has an extensive bartending background. I have some public speaking and marketing in my background, and we both really love a good cocktail or two or three, you know. And so we moved back to Missouri, which is my home state, and we're just kind of looking at different opportunities. Van was putting together the business plan. We were talking about what makes sense. We love Columbia. My master's degree is from the University of Missouri, so I am definitely a Tiger through and through. And we felt like Columbia would be the perfect place because folks are really interested in supporting local and in that really good kind of locavore community vibe. And so we set to task to put our business plan into place, and we went around with our little hat in our hands. And, you know, it was really interesting. There was a lot of fear, I would say, around us opening a distillery because it had nothing like that had been done before in this area. And so the city and all of the legal necessities that go along with opening something like that, as well as with the banks and things, they were a little hesitant. But we always say that we're scrappy, so we persevered, and we ended up self-funding and being really, really nice to all the city officials and assuring them that our biggest interest was to be a good community partner. And if we were wildly successful, we would be happy to pay our taxes, which would ultimately benefit the city and the county and the state. And so about 6.5 years ago, out of the 8 years that we've actually been in business, we were able to open our doors as a working distillery with the tasting room.
So How long have you been in business? Did you just say that? I may have missed that.
So we have created our business 8 years ago. It took about a year and a half of actually physically being in a location to get our doors open. So the getting your federal permit is quite an extensive process. It took several months. Unfortunately, it also happened during the government shutdown. And so that extended the period. And then once you have your federal permits that require you have serial numbers for your equipment, blueprints of where you're going to be. So a lot of investment before you even know if you're going to get the green light to go. Then we moved on with the state and the county and the city regulations. So it did take us a little while to get everything in place so that we could open our doors.
Excellent. And I'm going to ask the next question, and then I'm going to post in the chat box a link to your website. I did pull that up prior to us getting on, but the next question for you is, what spirits do you produce?
Aha. So one of the things that we wanted to do was we wanted to be able to meet a variety of needs. And so we know that there are some folks that are have very specific spirits that they enjoy. And then there's other of us that really just like spirits in general. And so we actually have a full line of DogMaster products. And I'm glad that you're putting the website on the chat, because it goes through and explains about every one of our spirits. We do vodka, gin. Our gin is our newest product, and it took a long time to figure out exactly what the profile that we wanted for it. We also do a dark rum that is finished in our used whiskey barrels. And so it definitely has a different flavor profile than your typical dark rums. We also don't add any coloring or flavoring. Rum is one of those things that if you look on the back of a dark rum bottle, you might see some coloring and flavoring additives in a lot of those products. We don't do that. We also have an unaged whiskey product that we love and use much like we would use a silver tequila. We have our aged whiskey, and then we have our bourbon.
Excellent. And I did see a question posted in the chat, and I'll go ahead and ask that of you. Is, do you make hand sanitizer?
We did for a short amount of time. And so the Columbia, Missouri Police Department contacted us and said, hey, we have been reading that distilleries are making hand sanitizer because it is unable to be found. And are you all planning to do that? And so we said, well, that wasn't top of mind, but we are community-minded people, so we'll figure that out. And so we did some internet research, and the WHO came out with their non-traditional manufacturer's recipe. And so we got to work. And so for several months, we like to tease that we're the most sanitized folks inside and outside in the entire town. And so we ended up producing several thousand gallons of hand sanitizer, and then moving that through the school districts and the police departments, a lot of different places. We brought that to a close. We were only interested in fulfilling a need. And so as soon as the market could kind of catch up and it was becoming more readily available, we did decide that we were good with that. We did not intend to open up a subsidiary business in the midst of our regular business. And certainly those traditional manufacturing plants that make those products are much more efficient at it than we are. So we did it for a short amount of time. We were happy to do it. It allowed us to keep our staff employed, which was really important to us. And it allowed us to be a good community steward, and it allowed us to pay our rent, which we were very concerned with, obviously, with the shutdown. So we did, and we were happy to do it. We're super happy to not be doing it anymore.
And I'm pulling up some information in the background, but while I'm working on that, talk a little bit about your aged whiskey.
Absolutely. So we have a wheated whiskey, and so we do corn, oats, wheat, malted barley. I like that kind of sweeter to our whiskey. We were very insistent that we wanted our whiskey product and our bourbon product to be vastly different, and it really is. In fact, in our house, we're a house divided. I love our whiskey. My husband loves our bourbon. And so with the malted barley and the wheat, it provides a little bit of a sweetness to it. And so it's a little, I like to say it kind of reminds me more like a Canadian style whiskey. It's got kind of a smoothness to it. And so I tell people it's my daily driver. We've had folks kind of liken it to maybe kind of like a Crown Royal product. One of my favorite products is actually Basil Hayden's. And so I find it to be very smooth drinking, very soft in comparison to our bourbon products. And it is at 90 proof. All of our products are at 90 proof except for our vodka, and that's at 80 proof.
And a moment ago, I did post your website. There did come a question in kind of in regards to that. Can you order your products online or by phone?
Haha. So interestingly enough, every state has very different parameters for shipping alcohol. And in Missouri, we are unable to ship across state lines at this time. I can tell you that one of the things that we have done in Missouri is we have recently gathered together a craft distillers guild, and we are actively working on changing the legislation. We actually had some pretty good movement going on at the beginning of 2020 that would maybe allow us to ship products easily. And as everyone knows, everybody felt with the coronavirus and COVID, everything has shifted. And so we are kind of repeating the process, hopefully, this year and getting some of those laws changed and statutes changed so that we are able to ship. So unfortunately, at this time, we don't ship across state lines.
So the next question, I want everyone to participate by not going to Google and looking up the answer, okay? And how you're going to participate is you're going to post your guess in the chat box. How many distilleries are in the state of South Carolina? Give everybody a few seconds to post their guesses.
I can tell you a couple years ago, I went to the Hilton Head Distillery and it is awesome. So if you have not been to the Hilton Head Distillery, we highly recommend it. In fact, they have, I believe, a rum product there that we had in our coffee every single morning of vacation after we visited. So I highly recommend Hilton Head Distillery.
We have several folks on the line right now from Hilton Head, so I'm glad to hear that. Help a couple more guesses. Let's give everybody, we've heard from some. I will tell you, one person is almost exactly correct. They have almost got it. Come on now, folks. I don't see a guess from Mary. Come on, Mary. Throw one in there. I want to get it from everybody. 5 seconds. Okay. District Governor Pauline Levesque was the closest to it. She put 32. There happens to be 33. So good job, Pauline. So how do you have a tasting room at your distillery?
So we do. We were very one of the nice things about Missouri is that you are able to do that and not just have a tasting room, but do full cocktail service. And so that was another reason why we wanted a full line of spirits, is because in addition to coming in and doing like a typical tasting where we would line up the glasses and talk you through the spirits, we also have a full cocktail menu where we do probably at any given time between 30 and 40 cocktails on the menu. We have specific cocktails. We really like those old traditional cocktails. We call them very liquor forward, and those would be things like your Manhattans, your old fashions, things where you can really enjoy the spirits. We also have a seasonal menu that we actually are just getting ready to change over for winter, where we focus on particular cocktails that might be a little bit more appealing for the season. So for instance, we are getting ready to change over to hot cocktails. And so we have a lot of fun at the distillery. We encourage people to play with their booze, and so we feel like we should do that too. And so we have a lot of things that we would call signature drinks that maybe you can get your version of a Greyhound someplace else, but we have our own version that we've just put our little special touch on. And so because we do have a tasting room that has full cocktail service, we have a pretty loyal following. And so it does add a good positive energy to the space, and we're really happy to do that because it also helps with revenue. We were able to move over to do some bulk cocktails and sell those. The Missouri state laws kind of opened up for us a little bit, so it was another revenue generator that we would not have had if we did not have the tasting room already in place.
Last question before I go back to the chat and get those questions asked to you is why the name DogMaster?
So if you go to our website, you'll see that we actually have a definition of DogMaster, and there's the definition of DogMasters on the back of every bottle because we really believe in it. So the name is really talking about doing your own thing. We are not really ones to follow the big crowd. And so my husband has much more colorful language for products that have, he's pretty sure that Blake Shelton and P. Diddy and all those folks are not actually, at the distillery making critical decisions for their products that they represent. But there are those of us in smaller venues where we don't have the smoke and mirrors marketing that are doing the hard work. And so we're all about following our own path, defining what we think is quality and what we think is a good product. And so that all comes from my husband in his college days. He had a group of friends that did everything together, really except for study, I can tell you that. But on the off chance that someone had a date or did decide to study for a test, they would dog the person and they would call them the DogMaster. And they would say, you're dogging the group, you're dogging the boys, you're doing your own thing. And so that's really where we got the name. DogMaster was out of a definition that was created by a group of guys who liked to tease each other a whole lot, but also had respect for the person that was ready to define their own way and do their own thing.
I don't know, those of you in our district here in South Carolina, don't know, especially up in the Grand Strand, there's only a couple of us on this call that may have heard of this company, but it's called 1233 Distillery. They were, and I think they just recently stopped this, but if you purchased, I think it was a minimum of 2 bottles of their spirits, you got a gallon thing of their hand sanitizer that they were making that was free with your purchase. So that's pretty cool. And they've really grown here in the Myrtle Beach area. So you've mentioned a wide variety of your products and services. How many people do you employ?
So we have we actually have an ownership group. And so we've picked up a couple more couples along the way. My husband and I started DogMaster, and then a couple of years in, we picked up another couple that was really interested. And then I think 2 years ago, we picked up another couple. And so the ownership group is super hands-on. In fact, one of our owners does all of our spirit runs. And so we have production staff that do the mashing and the stripping run, but Dan has his background is in chemical engineering. And so he is very particular, and he's the only one that does our stripping runs. So our ownership team is very hands-on. In addition to that, we have a group of staff that help us with production and help us with the tasting room. And so they are primarily part-time. I would say we have a couple that are a little bit more on the full-time aspect. And then it's really all hands on deck for when something needs to be done. We're still relatively small in our distribution area, so we do a lot of bottling parties and things like that, and that's where groups can come in. And so, for instance, sometimes it's just a group of friends that want to have a neat experience. Other times there's charitable groups. And so what we'll do is they'll come in and they'll give us however many hours of time it takes to bottle up certain products. And then we will make a charitable donation to their organization in return. And so we kind of go about things in a variety of ways. Things are evolving as we grow. And we could not do it without an amazing team that is really the folks who are interfacing with our public on a daily basis. And my husband pretty much lives there. And I live there whenever I'm not taking care of everything else. So you could call him full-time plus, and then I'm full-time plus.
Gotcha. You mentioned earlier about Canadian whiskey. Do you blend most of your product, and what is the grain you use most often in your whiskey products?
So we're currently not doing any blending. That is something we would like to do in the future. We have, so again, 2020 in a lot of ways made us be even more scrappy than what we were. We actually introduced a growth plan and we're actively seeking investors in early 2020, and things were going very well. And part of that growth plan was an expansion of our current product line, an expansion of our production space. And of course, COVID kind of made it very difficult to continue that in the way that we were on track to take care of that. And so we have a wide variety of ideas for things for the future, but currently everything is single barrel. And we like it that way because it makes things have a unique profile. So one of the things that people really love, as well as I do, about larger venues, I'll be really honest and say Maker's Mark is one of my faves. And that's that homogeneous, you know what you're going to get. And that's because, you know, they have perfected their recipe and their distillation methods, and then they also blend. And so we do not blend, we do everything single barrel. And so there might be some variances between batch depending upon, you know, the barrel itself, where we use primarily white oak, but how is it treated? Was it kiln dried? What's the toast? What's the char? Things of that nature. And so for us, our grain bill on our whiskey is corn, oats, wheat, and malted barley. And we do like the fact that it has a little bit of some unique flavors to it that only comes from doing single barrel bottling.
We have a comment here about your custom mask online. Are they being used while your drinks are designed?
Okay, I'm not sure I'm following that.
Okay, maybe I can look on the website and figure out.
Donald, read it again.
I see your custom mask online. Are they being used while drinking are designed? Or
as designed?
Yes.
Okay, got it. We'll keep going. Vodka, use carbonized coconut shells. Is that virtually the same as commercial activated carbon?
Yes. So we have created our own, we've created our own filter. And so a lot of folks talk about vodka, and a lot of what you see when you see vodka is how many times it's been distilled. And so really with vodka, the purpose is to pull out any of the impurities, any of those off flavors. You want it to be as flavorless as possible. That really comes in the filtering process. And so we have created our own customized filter system. And so it's a continuous filter that has the carbonized husks in it. And so we filter it through. It's much like, so what we tell you to do is, if you ever want to kind of get a sense of a fun experiment, if you're really a spirits person, is get a very mediocre pint of vodka. And then if you have a Brita filter at your house, you'll need another one after you do this for your water. But put that vodka through your Brita filter in your pitcher, and see what that does to it. And so really for us, the filtering is a really important part of the process. We does have, I will tell you, our vodka does have a little tiny bit of sweetness because it is from corn. And so you do get a little bit of that corn sweetness, but really it is very, very well balanced. You can really drink it. I drink it on the rocks a lot. You can also drink it with any sort, you can add any sort of mixer with it, and you get the flavor of the mixer, which is really what vodka is intended to do.
You mentioned earlier about how special groups can come and you'll make a donation if they're doing some bottling or something like that. So do any of those Rotary clubs in your area, have they been to visit yet?
Oh, so I will tell you, so that's actually how I became a Rotarian, was very early on in the process, very early on in us being open. My husband, we have a couple of bourbon aficionados in our Rotary Club, and they heard about what was going on. They asked my husband to be a speaker, and he said to me, he said, I think this is a group for you. And so he actually, interestingly enough, a local beverage distiller, or I'm sorry, a local beverage distributor, N.H. Sheppers, who is our Budweiser distributor in town, their vice president is a member of the Rotary, and we knew her. And so she invited me as a guest. And I would say that especially pre-COVID, our tasting room was a regular spot for committee meetings and socials and every other possible reason, just meetups for our Rotary Club as well as other Rotaries within our city. And so we have been very blessed by their support. We also support so many community things, and so many things that are important to Rotary are important to us at the distillery. And so it makes it a nice fit for us to be able to support a lot of the things that different organizations, especially the Rotary, does.
Well, that's excellent. I did not know you're a Rotarian, so awesome. Congrats. That's really cool. I see one more question in the chat. If you have a question, please post it in the chat at this time. What is the investment needed to start this type of business?
Well, I would tell you that if we were to do it all again, it would be far more than what we started out with. How's that? I would say, we often say that $1 million would be the perfect, at least at this time, amount of money to do all the things that we know now need to be done differently than how we did them when we started. We actually started, because we were self-funded, we actually started with far less. And so we started with about $250,000. And then with a lot of our personal input along the way, that was really what we needed to get into the space. We needed to purchase our equipment. But that was really, it really put us short on working capital. And so I would say, it depending upon the size and what you're intending to do, at least $500,000, but $1 million would be ideal if you truly wanted to be an exceptional craft distillery and have the ability to really have good distribution, which requires a level of production that we're really just now getting to after so many years.
Do you ever think about buying cask from other distilleries and blending them with your spirits?
So we actually do a little bit of some fun specialty products. And so again, when we move into our next phase of our growth plan, there will be some blending happening. I truly believe that that is definitely on our big to-do list. But right now what we do is, we utilize barrels that have been already used for our anniversary bourbon. So every year for our anniversary, we put out a double barreled bourbon. And so it's a limited release. We take one of our barrels and then we do different things with it. So we've used this last year, it was a brandy barrel from a distillery just up the road from us, Les Bourgeois brandy barrel. This next year, there's a fantastic winery in Bland, Missouri called Wynwood Winery that does some award-winning port. And so they're currently aging their port in one of our whiskey barrels, and then we will get it back later this month. And then we will do our double barrel with that port barrel for the end of this month. We actually had a beer release in town. We have several great breweries in town, one of them being Baroque. They just did a tap takeover, and one of their beers that they just released is a beer that they finished in our used barrels. So we do a lot of barrel collaboration. We just don't do it to the big extent of doing blending at this point.
Looks like maybe the last question was just posted here. Oh, here we go. Are you familiar with Rotary Fellowships? We have a whiskey one formed in our district. Anyone know how many members? Anybody know how many members are in the whiskey fellowship in our district? Maybe anybody got that? But we felt there's a whiskey dram fellowship that was formed in our district here in South Carolina that you can join, I believe, from around the country, I believe.
Yes, it is worldwide, actually. But I'm not sure how many are in our district.
Gotcha.
Well, I would love to do that. That sounds right up my alley. So I'm going to put that on I'm never far away from a pen and a paper. I know everybody's very electronic these days, but so I'm putting that on my to-do list to check out this week.
Well, excellent. Well, thanks for coming on and sharing your story of DogMaster Distillery with us this morning. That was very educational. I will tell you, Lisa, as the what we call the designated driver of Rotary District 7770, some of the stuff that was asked over here, I'm like, I have no idea what that is. A cask, this, that. I have no idea. So I actually learned a lot today as someone who doesn't drink. So thanks for being on. And if you ever come to South Carolina, how about look us up here in District 7770. We appreciate it. And the link for the Whiskey Dram Fellowship was just posted in the chat there.
Perfect. Well, thank you all for having me. And if you're ever in Missouri, we're right in the smack dab in the middle of the state between Kansas City and St. Louis. And so we would love to see you. And I am definitely interested in looking up more about the Whiskey Dram group. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be with other Rotarians. I often say that that's the best part of my week, is to be in fellowship with other folks who have a heart for service and a great sense of humor and understand the balance of having a really good time and doing really good work.
We like to say hashtag doing good, having fun, tell someone. So.
Oh, I like that.
All right. For those on here, thanks for being here. For those over on Facebook, also thank you for being here. I have a challenge now for Wednesday. We're all in a Rotary Club, right? And we all Rotary Clubs generally have what is called a public image chair of your Rotary Club. Well, I want to see some public image chairs from across our district on our Wednesday Zoom call. Anybody have an idea why? Because we're going to hear from the Rotary International Public Image Chair on Wednesday at noon on our next CWRAP program. So please invite your, and we just have someone entering the waiting room now. How about that? They missed this wonderful presentation. I guess better late than never. But Wednesday at noon is our next CWRAP with Nina Hashala, which is the Rotary International Public Image Chair. And then on Friday, we want you to bring your bicycle with us, as we're going to hear from Arnold Calmer from Kent Bicycles. So those are our next two speakers. Also, January 11th today, just for, fun and giggles as we close down here, is National Clean Off Your Desk Day. Wednesday is at noon, not 11. Wednesday is at noon. Mondays and Fridays are at 11. Wednesday is at noon. Today is also National Milk Day. And last but not least, and it's going to rain in South Carolina. So how about this? How did they know it was going to rain on this particular day? Is National Step in a Puddle and Splash Your Friends Day. So with that being said, I'll conclude with the Rotary four-way test. Of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? We'll see you on Wednesday at noon for the next conversation with Rotary Action People. Take care.